I am sober as hell.
All right, guys, good night and welcome to another episode of the Straight No Chaser podcast. Tonight we have a very special guest with us. We have Krissy of, if you follow her on IG, her IG is Krissy.
Calm. 93.
And you've had some people trying to impersonate you. So can you just spell it out?
So it's
we know which one is the real one and which one is the hater.
Huh?
I said spell it out so we know which one is the real one and which one is the hater.
So it's KRISSYCOM as in calm 93. That's it. Anything else is not me.
Okay. Thank you, Krissy. And Krissy is a financial freedom advocate. We've coined this term tonight for her because it basically explains what she does on her platform. Also tonight we have B.
What's up, everyone?
Coming in all the way from Cali. Have Ro.
Hi.
And I'm your girl, Yans.
Yans. Girl, give yourself more pep than that. Yans.
You know, the soft voice.
Yans. The Yans. I don't know what else to say.
The Yans.
The Yans. So we start with a toast as usual, and a toast to tonight's episode. We're looking at finances, we're looking at growth, we're looking at bossing up, leveling up in life and careers. So cheers to that.
Cheers.
Cheers, everybody.
Okay. Oh.
Rohan is the only one having a real shot tonight. I'm having wine. Everybody else seems like they're having something not
milder.
Wild. Rohan.
I had some Dawn. Ooh.
I've been on I don't know. I did that dry January thing, and then I've had drinks since then, but it's literally been maybe like once every 2 weeks. And so I know, and I don't know if I'll be drinking when I come to Grenada in August, guys. Just FYI.
Ooh,
I kind of like the no alcohol thing right now.
It's honestly a nice vibe. Like when I did dry January, and it took me a while to actually want to drink, because even in Trinidad, when I went for Carnival, it was like 2 or 3 drinks for every event that I went to. And I was like, I am sober as hell. I think Sunday recently was the first time I've really drank like that.
Yeah. I'm worried because the thing is, like, I know myself. I know, like, when I'll get around at least y'all, and like when in a affected mood, I'm like, you know what? Let me have a drink. So it could also be like I haven't really been partying that much, but I'm also worried, like, when that time comes, like, do I need to build up to that? Because I'm definitely not trying to.
I think you'll be fine. You blame us for your excessive drinking, and we'll blame you for our excessive drinking.
They're exactly how, and so the stories always go. So
it's like a beautiful symbiotic relationship. You know?
Prosecco B gonna make an appearance. Anywho.
Oh gosh.
So we had some questions online. Thank you to everybody who participated. And B is going to lead us in those questions. And Krissy, chime in if you have anything. Feel free to interrupt if you want to add anything.
Yeah, I love our listeners. If either of you didn't get a chance to read some of these, the responses are like very on point, but also very like hilarious. So yeah. Cool. So yeah, we did ask a couple of poll questions and some open-ended questions to our listeners around not only financial literacy, as Jans mentioned earlier, just around personal growth. So the first question was a poll, and this is actually my favorite. So do you think that the introduction to financial literacy is lacking in the education system today? The options that we gave our listeners were absolutely, nope. And the third one was, wish something like that existed. And so 100% of those that voted said absolutely that they think it's lacking in the education system today. Anybody want to share some thoughts before I share mine?
Go ahead. I'll go last.
Okay.
No, you go ahead. I was planning that you go.
Or you want to go first?
Oh no. I mean, I feel like it absolutely is missing out because I think maybe we learned how to write a check in high school, and that is all for any type of financial literacy I could even think of that we were taught in the school system. And I went to a private school, right? So I don't know if it was different in the public schools. I feel like sometimes in other countries, the private schools get like more financial education. I've heard and seen people talk about it, but it's not something that I ever experienced here in Grenada. So definitely
Yeah.
needed.
I feel like same idea in the States. I was in the public school system. Ro, it's funny that you mentioned private school because I think that's going to lead to the other question that comes up too. But
Mm-hmm.
anywho, so same thing. I think, I don't know if it's a scenario where they thought like like parents should be teaching these kids things, which that's also a thing. But I think that because it's a system of like, it's at least even with my parents, like that wasn't introduced into their schooling as well. So it's like the blind leading the blind essentially. And so, like, for example, my dad added me to his like credit card uh, account at a specific age to teach me about finances. But I mean, he knew, like, I mean, I definitely abused it, right? And I got in a lot of trouble for it. And like, understood those consequences, like, okay, well, I can't spend this much because this is the impact. But I don't ever remember a time, a conversation that there has been around like what your credit means, right? Like, especially
Mm-hmm.
except with my own parents, but like no any type of formal education of like what does your credit mean? And I feel like it should be introduced at least at the high school level because you're preparing yourself, especially like, you're getting like here in the States, student loans get handed out like candy and it puts you in debt, right? And people are like, oh yes, it's free money, but like it's not free money. You have to pay it back at some point, depending on what type of course loan you got. And so it's like, I think it's just a system set up for failure for people who need the education, can't get the education. Like I still have yet to use some of my trigonometry stuff that I've learned in life versus like I wish I would known a
True.
little bit more about credit usage and all these kind of things that I didn't have to
Mm-hmm.
learn on my own by like trial and error. So I hope that changes. But yeah.
Ayana, are you talking about it or?
Let me see. I started in private and then went to public. I can't say that it was specifically taught, but I would say that there were programs that encouraged um, personal growth. Maybe not specifically from a financial standpoint, but definitely encourage entrepreneurship, um, leadership qualities. Think there were different. I can't say that there wasn't anything, but it definitely is nothing compared to the skill sets that we need as adults in terms of, I think it prepares you for living and working within a particular financial bracket, but it doesn't prepare you for living and working within the financial bracket that most of us have set as a goal when you want to be financially free. If you want to live paycheck to paycheck and maybe have a little savings in the credit union, or like a susu here, it teaches you to do small money saving or to think small money ways, but it doesn't teach you how to handle big money, even in simple things like you get into the job market from college or whatever, university, they don't teach you any of the things that you need to do legally in terms of your personal accountant, in terms of just everything from your banking all the way down to the simplest things like, none of it. But Krissy, before you answer, I wanted to ask you if you could include in your answer a little bit of how you got into being able to answer this question. Because I know that I know we went to the same primary and secondary school.
Yeah.
So I know that it wasn't really from school. maybe school encouraged some kind of behavior, but it wasn't from school. So how did you gain your own set of expertise, along with your answer to this question?
Well, for starters, for me, the first time I could remember some semblance of financial direction was in Form 4. Big up Mr. Houston. When he spoke about share, honest, that is the only thing I could remember. He spoke about shares. I remember seeing you can buy as low as $1 or as high as five or whatever it was at the time. And then I feel like everything just kind of dwindled after that. You just kind of scrape the surface. And this was just this is a POB book, and then you just see like a topic and then you move on with the next topic for the so it wasn't anything that was kind of ingrained in our thoughts. You just move on and then you just pass your subjects and stuff. But apart from that, I think I had the natural like discipline based on what I was doing at convent anyway. So that kind of channeled throughout life, throughout TAM-CC, as broke as I was as a college student, stuff like that. But for me, I always liked seeing money. So I felt like as long as I was working, I want to feel like if I could see a little $10 at the end of the month, or a little 200, stuff like that. So I always had the natural interest to see my money grow, because I was always like, no, I can't be at $0. So fast forward, even actually, let me really fast forward. So let me just come up to 2020 when COVID hit, and I had money saved, but it's like I didn't have a direction for my money, because I was never taught, okay, what could I do with this? So let's go back a little bit. 2018, I was working for a period of like 10 months, and I'm like, okay, I want to see my money get to 10,000. So this is just me playing games with myself. Mind you, I don't have any form of like financial literacy or anything at this point yet. I just know I just like seeing my money grow for the simple fact of that. So then I was able to save 13,000 in a space of 10 months, surpassing my initial goal. And then I'm just like, all right, well, this is not bad. So at that same time, I saw someone online saying, those tweets where it's like 100,000 in your bank account, claim it and stuff like that. So I'm like, okay, I already see those digits. Let me look at the comments, because that's where the real tea is at. And then I saw someone saying that you shouldn't be having all of that to yourself. You should break it down like towards like investment goals and stuff. So I'm like, imagine my shock. I thought I was doing this thing right. And mind you, again, like I had no knowledge of like what to do. I thought you just saved your way to wealth. I wasn't thinking, in terms of cash flow, in terms of generational wealth. This was not in my mind. And I'm talking, I was like 26 at the time, or 25, I can't remember. But that was all I knew. And I was never taught that. My father, he worked where he worked, and then I feel like he was successful in different ways, but it's like the conversations that we would have as kids, even growing up, it's like you're just expected to be an employee. So you just go about, you make your 2,400, whatever it is that you make a month, you just hold that, spend that, go out, and that's how you kind of live life to a degree. So like we all taught, like we know our salaries, right? Or whatever income that you have, but you don't know how much you're keeping at the end of the day. You know how much you make, you could tell anybody that easily, but how much you keep, So it's like the simple, small things. And I hope that answers the question that no. Otherwise, we really wouldn't be here having this conversation and like knowing so many people who don't have any financial knowledge in general. We just know we have something, and then we just coast through life, and we get to our 60s, and then we might probably rely on our children or so to fund us for the rest of our days. So
Yeah.
But yes, that is kind of like the direction I went at the beginning to where I am now. So I guess
love it. I love it, Krissy. It's funny because like you say when you when you said that you were reading the Twitter and you're like, wait, but I thought I was doing good just by saving it. But like there's so many people I've spoken to even now, like I was kind of the same way in my 20s period where I was just like, I got so much money in different like savings account versus like when I speak with my brothers and I was talking, my brother's like, what are you doing? He's like, you do realize in your save, like I didn't keep put that in my mind. He's like, in a savings account, your money's still deteriorating. He's like,
Yeah.
versus like
Yeah.
just growing. So it's so crazy how little people know that. Like even coming from like our generation of parents, where like that was more of a fear of like, no, if we do that, there's a potential of losing it, not realizing that actually you're more likely to lose in your savings versus investing into something that can grow like 4% over a year for you, or even if you get more riskier than that. But yeah, I love that. I love that you shared that
Yeah.
anecdote.
Dad, for example, my dad, he's always like side eyeing me because I invest, and we just have two different ways of keeping our money. But he's more like a saver, and you should be a saver as well. It's just that additional push for your money, kind of like he's the total opposite. Like when I went to Grenada last year, he even gave me a book on people who lost their money and stuff like that for me to read to scare me, you know.
I think that's
that is
generational thing. It's a generational thing. We're afraid of insurance, and we, even Caribbean parents. I don't know if it is B. You can say if it's similar in your culture, but at least I know our Caribbean parents. We're afraid to talk about life insurance. We're afraid to talk about insurance in general. We're afraid to talk about anything that isn't any financial institution that isn't a credit union or a bank isn't trusted.
Yeah.
Your money's trusted under under a pillow mattress.
Yeah. But I think they do definitely have a point. And I'll say they have a point only because they've experienced things. There have been a couple, I guess,
There've been some
scheme,
horror
but like there have been some horror stories. Like my
Pyramid
parents
schemes.
and many people that I've known have lost hundreds of thousands of dollars in the last decade.
Yeah.
You know, with the things that came in here. So like I understand their fear.
Yeah.
So it's like you get it, and you just have to be like, you know what? We have to just par and be like, this is what you understand. This is where I'm coming from, and just let it be. But they believe in saving your money underneath your pillow because it's safe as there.
I mean, and some of it's all really actually, some of it is actual schemes, but there is a way to understand the system and play the game.
Yeah. I think part of it is like that connotation of like, oh, that's rich people things, right? Like that's oh, rich people have enough money to risk with, and therefore, or like I'll even say too, like I used to think like it used to be like, oh, you need an accountant to do all these things for you, where actually that's not the case. You can start with like little baby steps on your own. There's like so much out there now as far as like different apps, like, you know, some free things that are out there that like will teach you. I used to use an app called you just mentioned like, you know, but how much are you keeping? So I used to wanted to see like, where am I actually spending my money? So I used to use an app called like Albert or Dave, and it will listen. If you want something to tell you where you spend in and get knocked in your face, right? Like that will categorize like where your spending is. And I remember like, I love McDonald's breakfast till this day. I love McDonald's breakfast. And it showed me like, hey, by the way, in this month, you've spent like $800 at you know, at McDonald's.
Yep.
Like, and think about it, like you think it's like, oh, it's just
I don't want that app.
right? It's a $5 to $6 like meal, right? It's still like basically, but I was just like, wow, if something could tell me in my face what I did, like I felt so stupid. But yeah, I think that's what I'm saying. Like I think like there's actually really cool resources available out there now without having to pay someone just yet to manage all of that.
Yeah, I use Mint for that. In that case, it shows me everything when I get paid, how much I spend on dining out. It holds you accountable. So, I mean, apart from like using an Excel sheet, which I highly recommend, if you have to hold yourself accountable, Excel is your best friend as well. Just write everything. And I think it helps more than these apps too, because I feel like something connects in your brain and it tells you, okay, I'm doing way too much for this. I could be doing better in a particular area, especially in an area that doesn't mean a lot to you for the most part. So I'd always recommend to like my friends to cut out on the areas that don't mean a lot. And for the areas that do mean a lot to you, you can possibly keep it. Ultimately, you want to have more discipline in general, but you could always look at those areas that you don't need. For example, like subscriptions and stuff that you just, it's like, be for real, you know, like, do you really need this? So, and it's a small step. So
Krissy, you're coming for me.
that's my goal. I do it every day.
Krissy just shows up at your house, bro. She's like, what's the plan?
She'd be like,
Budget?
do you need that though? I'm like, no.
At your window, it's me.
Yeah.
Oh man. Oh man.
Oh my goodness. But yeah, no,
Um,
the accountability is definitely something that a lot of us need.
Mhm.
And I think I definitely need to try my best. At least
And
start with Excel.
as well, that would help.
What's
I
that?
Because as good as I am, trust and believe someone is holding me accountable as well. Like when I mess up or when I'm doing too much, they'll be like, "Yeah, you're kind of doing too much. You really shouldn't be buying out like that so much." So trust and believe. Everyone needs it. You're not too great to need it. Your income is not too high or too low to have someone to say, "Okay, I'm doing this," and then that's where you kind of like find that additional push and growth too. So
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
Okay.
Krissy, a question for you.
Mhm.
You take in this journey of yours, did you take any courses, any classes, or has this been more of like yeah, has it just been you and curiosity and Google?
So when I saw that tweet, I still didn't do anything about it. Like I saw it, I had that little, just a pint of knowledge on investing and what the hell I was doing wrong at that particular time or not enough of. And then probably a month later down the road, there was this guy I used to follow from 2 years back. His name is Chris Johnson. I saw he dropped a course on stock market gem. So I bought a course. So just to bring you off a tangent, you have to be willing to spend for knowledge as well. As even if there's free knowledge, you have to put out yourself. So the course was probably like 15 US or something like that, 20 US. And then I also bought another course from another guy named on Instagram named the Wealth Dad. And no, this was during
Follow
like
him. He's good.
nice guy. So this was during like COVID time. So I had the time on my hands. I was home working, and while I had the laptop up, I was reading this. I didn't care about work that much. Like work was there, but like
whoever
I
she
was.
works for, don't hear that.
Oh
I'm
no,
just kidding.
I left. It doesn't
And she's not there no more.
It's all good. Are y'all seeing my? Yeah, all
Yeah.
good. So I mean, yeah. So I was kind of investing from the courses that I bought up front, and then I felt myself having like an addiction because at that time I had money in my account. A couple thousand from what I've been saving before. So one, I felt rich, like I had it, and it's not even like I had it. I just felt like, all right, we in the 5 figures now. We doing thing now. So time to put some of the money we have somewhere else, and then knowing that I had additional money to kind of just sprinkle all over. And I'll talk about like renting because this is definitely a privilege as well that I have to acknowledge. So I had the money to sprinkle into different areas now. And while learning, I was starting to just push money in an individual retirement account here and then do that. So I didn't even have the knowledge yet, but because I was so eager to like for my future, like my financial future and all that, I felt that was overwhelming me on what I had missed for that specific period of time. I just started to do stuff. And that in itself, it helped me too, because now I could see, all right, well, I put a couple dollars there and now I could see it's up by $5. So I started to see the reality through my little actions. So that's when I'm just like, okay, let me go on my Instagram and just kind of talk about this because it's fun. And I felt like I was like the only person at that specific time who knew about it. And then while talking about it, more people started to reach out about it. So I kind of just fed off people's vibe. And then eventually I ended up writing an ebook later on. So there's a lot of small baby steps that I didn't know would be the outcome. But I guess the excitement and the drive I had for learning and sharing, that's what kind of got me to that place. So it really came from like a place of nothing to like something and actually helping people learn and kind of just learning in the process of helping others too. So it didn't just like fall from the sky, like stuff like that. It really was like everyone starts from a place where they know nothing and then you could build on that.
Absolutely.
I love it. I love this
And
conversation
we
so
definitely
much.
wanted to talk about your book after, like plug yourself, my girl.
And this is like 3 years in 2020. I mean, it was the other day, but it's a long time ago, kind of. So like 3 years ago. This is when I was learning. Yeah, March. Yeah, got home like March the 13th. So like all know. So yeah,
Yes, learning. Yeah. God, I
that's
love
kind
that.
of the
Super, super.
trajectory.
Should we go on to the next question?
Yeah, let's do the next question.
All right. So this was an open-ended question. So we'll share what the listeners said and then we'll jump in. So the question was, do you think availability of financial resources is based on any biases? So one listener said yes, because we love a who you know connection game to advance with ease. Another one said yes, things will always be more available to the rich elite to keep them in that position. Another person said yes, most resources are geared toward investing large amounts, nobody walking around with that. And another person agreed and said yes, because biases, capacity, and access to, there's biases in regards to capacity and access to equitable resources.
Okay. That's a really nice question. Very packed, but I would say that the times that we live in now, it's completely different to the times that our parents lived in.
Yeah.
So we have access to things that they didn't have access to, and the ease of access to it was not what we could compare that our parents had. So, for example, it's much easier to just go online, at least from the United States, or even if you're like interested in putting your money into different ways in the Caribbean, there is interactive brokers. So there are means to do it. And I agree in the sense that, okay, yes, the rich they have access to different things, but from a really general standpoint, education is free as it comes right now. You can go onto Google and find out anything that you want to find out, and different means and ways of getting information. So yes, we could complain about what we don't have, but what about what we do have? What about just taking that extra step yourself and figuring out, okay, how can I actually start putting money towards something, as opposed to saying, okay, well, the haves have it, and the haves will always have it, but it's just a matter of us finding ways to have it ourselves. And I think you made a point. I can't remember. Hold on, let me think. If I can't remember, I'll have you repeat it. Yeah. Repeat something that someone said. Probably like the second line.
Connection.
Yes. So I was watching, lovely. So I was watching a YouTube podcast with Patrick Bet-David. I love him. I have a book for him too. So he was saying, so yes, there will always be links, right? But the minute you complain about links, why not just get you some? Yes, you could have your own credibility based on merit you've gotten over the years, based on whatever you did. You went to school, blah blah blah. But he made a really good point when he was talking from a standpoint, and he said, if you're out of a job for a particular period of time and you don't get a job, that means you don't have enough connections or you don't have enough skill. So if you have enough skill, you could be self-sufficient, but there's always an A and B. But if you have connections, they will always have your back. So in the moments where you're low and you actually need someone, that's where you might have someone to reach out to at least help you for that particular period of time. So this is how I try to see life. I don't try to focus on anything else. Anything else is noise. It's more about what I want to do and how can I get there. So for me, for me, honestly, I could understand why people, it's so tricky because I could understand why having links would be annoying to some people, but having links could benefit you as well. And it is tricky because it is 50-50. There's pros and cons to everything, but what are the pros of that, and what are the possibilities that you can gain for having links? That's just how I see it. So as I tell my friends, if I had to have links, just send them all to me.
Yeah.
We could collaborate.
Yeah, I think
I like using the term a network or connections, or just maybe just saying it, having a strong network or a good friendships, whether it's business friendships or colleagues or whatever it is, wherever your field is. Make sure that in your field you have a presence, or you're developing relationship
Yes.
mutually beneficial relationships, and don't just think of it like links, like, know somebody and know somebody, knowing somebody that is beneficial to you and beneficial to them in a way that you
Mhm.
don't feel devalued, and you don't feel like you have to kiss somebody's ass to get somewhere, but you could call them, you could do what you had to do,
And
because
that
of
is business too, the more you know and the more valuable connections within that space, it's beneficial for everyone.
Yeah.
I you're right. So things are different from when our parents, like there was a time where like women couldn't even open up a bank account unless they
Mhm.
had a man come in with them and open, and they had a husband to sponsor them, right? So like I still do think that there is biases going on today, and maybe not in your face. It actually aligns with like the microaggressions we were talking about earlier of like, and when I think about biases, I'm thinking about people who are essentially like, do get marginalized, right? So speaking from like a person that's like lived in the States basically her whole life, seeing that like how higher interest rates are given to minorities, right? Even though if you stack them against their, white counterparts, had to say like they're the same. But and it's because there has been scenarios where banks like JP Morgan, right? Chase, like had a history of making higher interest rates for those that are marginalized, knowing that, okay, well, eventually they're not going to be able to afford their mortgage. And therefore, we're going to now take their house and resell it at a lower price to a person of white descendant. That's actually almost the story of like Compton specifically. But then when we think about, for me, from a woman's perspective, I shared this story with the girls the other day, but my father and we went to a car dealership and, weeks ago, and I was there I wanted to look at a car, and the dealership greeted me and then looked to my dad and said, "Oh, and you must be the co-signer."
Mm.
That was like, right? And I was like, wait. And my dad just came along for the joyride, right? And I was like,
Mm-mm.
this guy did not just now assume that just because I'm a woman, not only a woman, but now like a woman who's, Indian, and now telling me who's a first generation, from, immigrants. It's like, you're telling me that I literally can't afford a car on my own. And
Yeah.
it was like, and I still think that kind of behavior stays today. There's laws against it naturally, absolutely, which I'm glad there is. But I still do think there's that behavior today. I do think that like outside of the links, that part I get, you are absolutely right. There's like go get it if you're trying to have it. But like
Yeah.
there's still like those weird microaggressions that are like, they take one look at you and they're like, oh, we know you can't afford it. Or they take one look and like, oh, we know you're not going to get this home loan or mortgage loan. But it's like, it's just so crazy. So I do still think there's like some biases out there, inherent biases that are happening, microaggressions. There's laws to protect against it, but it's still at least a very big part of like the history over here.
Yeah.
The next question we've got is looking at your own personal growth. When was a moment you realized you needed to step it up a notch for an outcome you wanted? This was an open-ended one, so I love the answers to these ones. Listener said, when I hit adulthood and realized I needed to, quote unquote, make money to survive, and it wasn't just so anymore. I was drinking to suppress my feelings and realized if I didn't gather myself, I'd stay lost. When I wasn't where I thought I would be at 25. Soon as I realized my two incomes weren't enough. And then when I realized I was so uncomfortable being by myself, I had to fully love me.
Oh,
Who wants to take the first stab? Anybody? Wow, guys.
I'll first.
One at a time.
Don't rush.
Who's gonna go?
Go ahead.
I guess
Go, Jens.
Let's see. There was a time in my career when I was pursuing medicine, more so because of just expectation. As a kid, as a young girl that excelled in sciences, the expectation was that would be the career path. And it was always a problem with my artistic side. I loved painting and drawing. And I mean, I honestly haven't painted and drawn in years, but there was a time in my life when it was all I could do, you know. I loved acrylics and charcoal and doing portraits and still life. Like I really loved it. And then I had to put that aside. I did go into med school, and then I realized, okay, nah,
Not for you.
not for me. And that was one point in my life when I realized, okay, it wasn't a decision that I made because of finances. It was a decision that I made because of the quality of life I wanted to have. I realized that, okay, because when you think about your finances, also you have to think about, yes, you want to make X amount of money, but you also have to think at what cost. You know, where do you want to live? Where do you want to make the money? How do you want to make your money? How do you want your life to be? How do you want your relationships to flow around your career and the way that you have to make money? And I didn't feel like that career would have allowed me the lifestyle that I wanted to have. And so I left and I moved for a while, and then I went into teaching. And teaching was a very liberating profession because of all of the free time that I had. And if you know me, you know I'm a hustler, so I would work. I would also model on the side. I would do other random other things. I lived a whole life from 2:30 to nighttime. I lived a whole second life, you know, just either just being free. And then again, another point where I realized, okay, now I have the freedom that I want. I don't have the finances that I want. So how do I get both? And then that's when I made the decision to go to China and do my master's, which at that point I had held out for a long time because I couldn't figure out what I wanted to do my master's in. There was no program in Grenada that allowed me to feel like, okay, I get some science, I get some creativity, and also I get some freedom. And then I, landed in the position that I am in now, where I have a little bit of both. It's still challenging because, the more you learn and the more you see, the more you want to do and the more you want to see. So it's, you still have the different levels, but that was I would say, I can't answer the question straight because I feel like it's a constant reevaluation of where you are and your needs and what you need to, what needs to be a priority, what needs to be at the forefront. So like right now, maybe I'm thinking about career right now because maybe that's the main thing in my life right now. But, again, the focus will shift again. So yeah, that's how it worked for me. Yeah.
Mm. Well, I mean, to pick up where you left off, like I do think it's just like something that's like ever changing. And I feel like I'm always going through like a midlife crisis in my head. Like every couple of years, I'm just like, you're not where you're supposed to be. Like I'm so hard on myself about like where I'm supposed to be. Cause like even when I went to college and university and finished, it was always like a year or two later than my friends. Like it took me a while to kind of find what I wanted to do. And my parents thankfully gave me that space and grace where they were like, you don't like it, it's not for you, no problem, recalibrate, see what you want. Mm-hmm. And it's been a good thing and bad thing in my life because there's been like no like very strict behavior on what I had to do. So I feel like I floated around for a while, but I finally found what I wanted to do. I'm still not even doing it now.
You so are doing it. Stop it.
It's like technicality of it all because like I studied hospitality and tourism, and in a way I'm still doing hospitality just in my own way. And I found this like beautiful space that I'm in order to create and just still work. But I think for me, I'm never in the place that I want to be because I feel like I don't push myself hard enough because I've never had to push myself hard enough. I've always had good grades. I've made money and I've not necessarily needed it to survive. So I've always kind of just been like, okay, like I'll be all right. And just be okay with that. Yeah. Just be chill with that. And I think it's the extra push that's in the back of my head I know I need to do that's causing the midlife crisis every 2 months. But like me just looking at myself and be like, if you want to, because I was the one who said about the drinking part, because like December I was just overdoing it, overindulging, and just letting myself be, because I didn't want to deal with things. And I was like, no, but you have to deal with it at some point in order to grow from it. And you have to kind of sit back and be like, see what I mean about this camera?
It's a good view though.
So like you kind of just have to like ensure that you give this yourself like a path, and a strict path necessary to be like, this is what I have to do at every age, but just a path, be like, this is your plan, this is your finish line. Find your way there at a time that you feel comfortable, but still push yourself a little bit more. So my personal growth happens like every like couple months when I have to remind myself that I need to get that shit together.
Yeah, I feel you on that one, Ro. I feel like for me specifically, I just want it to be, it's not realistic, but I was like, why can't it just be all good all at one time? And what I mean by that, right? Like for example, I've been like financial, like, knock on wood, like I've learned so much when in regards to financial stability in these last 10 years that I feel really good, right? And I shared that in the last thing that we have, so I won't go into too much details, but like feeling really good that like I know if I were to step away today, I'll be okay. Or like if I were to be gone today, those that I leave behind will be okay. But then my diabetes diagnosis came, and y'all know I've been working my butt off for 2 years, right? And I'm like, why? Why can't it be like this and this? So like when we talk about like when you think about personal growth and that, like I also agree, like that's continuous. And so like I would say my latest point of like, okay, I need to get it together a little bit was that when that diabetes diagnosis came, especially because we're family planning, as we all know, and there's a lot of risk that comes with pregnancy and being diabetic. And I'm now in this state of like, Bahar, everything else in your life is good. Your health now needs to take top priority, but while still keeping everything else balanced, right? And does that mean that like I've started putting, blocks on my calendar where I'm like, I'm working out. I'm not overbooking on this. I don't care if it's money, like, not, I don't care it's money, but I'm like, it's okay that this can be scheduled for the next day because I'm in this state of mind of like, I need to get this body together. And it sucks when I'm gonna get emotional a little bit. It sucks when you're doing these things and you feel like things are working against you. So specific for me, when I think like I'm doing these things and like, wow, my body still worked against me and still this outcome came. But it's like now that perspective, like this outcome still happened, the diabetes diagnosis, but like, what does that now mean to my future? Like, does that mean future of like not only like having a healthy baby, but just generally me being able to be healthy where I can live longer than expected and all those kind of things. So like those are the things that like have made me really think about, you know, what this next part of my life is going to look like with the stability of everything else that I have in place, which I know I know there's people that cannot say that at this particular age in their life. And I feel very grateful for that. But I'm right there with you, Ro, of like, why can't it just all be done at the same time and we're there?
Just
right?
just work
Versus
with
like,
me.
yeah, just work with me. Like,
Just
and
like you
you know
figure
me, I've
out
never been
one
the
thing
person
and
of
then
like,
the other thing just falls apart.
yeah,
That
and
part is
you know me, it's like
important.
I've never been the person of like, oh gosh, I want to be skinny. It's always been like I want to be healthy and I want to be able to, rock a back squat very easily and all these kind of things. So like when these bumps
I want to
come,
wind down low, B. That's all
exactly
I
what a
need, not
6:30
Just drag her ass in the road.
without my
That's
hip
what
hurting. But you know what
it is.
I'm saying? So it's like it sucks that like it sucks and it's nice that like you get these reality checks and we're like, great, that just means that like I have more growing to do. But yeah, I would say that would have been like my latest like shit, I need to get my health together now. Like Bahar, you've worked hard on other things, like this now needs to take priority. So yeah.
Health is your wealth for
Health
sure.
is wealth. Absolutely. You said it, girl. You said it.
I mean,
Yeah.
the wealth is wealth too, and I'm not denied that
What is wealth when you're not here?
money will make me absolutely happy. It's not the most important thing, but it would make me happy. It's just you want everything to flow at the same
I-
time. And
Mhm.
it doesn't. So it's so hard to just feel like that contentment and that satisfaction at every point, because some aspect is going to be a shit show. It doesn't
Yeah.
always, and the moments when it all comes together are so brief that we don't even get enough time to appreciate it. In retrospect,
Yeah.
damn,
You're so right. You're
that
very
was
right.
such a good time. And then when we end up in like this shit, we're like, that's when we realize it was such a good time.
Yeah. That's like when like you're having a good skin day and hair day. That's never aligned, but it happens. I know it happens.
It does happen.
It happens. I've seen it at least happen for Ro. I've seen it happen for no, it happens. Trust me.
then.
Rose always having a good skin and hair day.
Yo, listen.
Come on.
Bro, your curls the other day
That
looked
bitch
so
know it's
luscious.
good.
They looked so
Thanks,
luscious.
guys.
I was like,
Aw.
girl.
I work so hard on these things, and then I need to work on my knees. That's why I need to go back to the gym. That is where the priority needs to be right now.
You might need to
Spend
add a
time.
footnote to that statement, because what?
Anyways, moving on. Krissy, what are your thoughts?
So for me, so in 2020, I call it my metamorphosis year because that's
Ooh.
the year my entire life transformed. And it was more than money. It was just like holistically as well. I felt mentally, I was actually in shambles, I think, but I was trying to develop other areas. So like just being more confident and my overall intentionality in doing everything. I thought I became very, straight to the point, concise with people, things that I wanted. So like the money aspect of it kind of flew in with me telling myself, okay, nobody's coming to save you. But I also had that safety net in 2020 because I was living with my aunt at the time. I wasn't paying rent, I was just stacking my money. So now I feel like I moved out a year ago around this time, and now I feel it's another level of elevation. So now I feel more vulnerable because I live here alone, and then I have to like pay my rent. So the responsibilities that I've had within the year has gone from 0 to 100. So now I'm feeling this like this energy that keeps on telling me, okay, don't get comfortable, because it's very easy to get comfortable when you feel happy. And I've been happy for like that period of time, just knowing what I've been doing. But in this state where I feel very exposed and I'm not able to put my money where I used to put it, as in the lump sums that I used to, and now I have to allocate it differently to different things. And now I'm telling myself, okay, how do I get to the next level again? Just how can I maintain what I'm already doing and still trying to be better and more consistent with the things that I put out and the things that I want to tell people and just the conversations that I have. So it's knowing for me still that that quote, nobody's coming to save you, that is something that kind of keeps me to this day. And it's like, if it's so easy to be homeless, I feel like if you have no one, but like if you can't pay a couple things on time, they're not hesitating to send you out on the street, like, so our safety net is really the people that we trust at the end of the day. And I want to live in such a way that I don't need anyone, although I acknowledge that no man is an island. So it's good to have them there, but I don't want to need to have them there. So I would try to do all that I can. So it's just a matter of like thinking, okay, what can I do next? What am I good at, to kind of keep other parts of me apart from my 9 to 5 thriving, and really knowing that, my future is really on me and no one else.
I feel like Krissy's dropping a lot of like
Right?
one-liner
Nuggets.
gems, like that
Right?
go on t-shirts,
Oh my God.
The girl's got a cup too, okay? Hold on
Hey.
now.
I have a question for the group though. As Krissy mentioned, that kind of, leveling up, that feeling to level up. I feel like, you always feel like you get to a place, hold on, let me gather my thoughts. You always feel like you get to a place that you wanted to be at. When you look back at maybe where you've come from and you imagine, oh, I can't wait till I'm making this much a month, or I can't wait until I'm doing that you get there and then you realize, okay, it's with more, it comes with more responsibility. With more money, it also, you end up with more bills. Also, the things that you want, the things that you become used to become more and more expensive to maintain. Your diet changes, your, the way your fashion change, in so many things change, and then you realize, okay, next, then you start looking for the next level in your career, because you feel like you've mastered where you are. The next level in your finances, because you feel like, okay, I just need to make $2,000 more, and then I'll be good. You make that $2,000 more, and you're like, I just need to make $5,000 more a month. And you see a way and you make that, and then you're like, I just need to make, and then it's this constant trying to acquire and do more. When do you get to a point, or do you feel like you would ever get to a point where you're like, okay, now I'm good?
That there's a name for that. I think it's called, I might be like pronouncing it wrong, but it's hedonic adaptation. It's like, it feels good in the, y'all could like Google that. It's HEDONC adaptation. So it's kind of like you feel good in the moment. So yes, you get the salary increase. This is what you dreamed of, but the feeling doesn't last very long. It's very short-lived. No, you're finally in that moment, then it comes like nothing. So to a degree, well, the highest degree, that's why they always say like you have to be happy with yourself before you get anything tangible, external, because otherwise nothing would be enough. And that's why like you find rich people doing stupid stuff because they have nothing to do, basically.
Mm-hmm.
They've acquired it all. So now they're bored, So that's why, it really, like, you have to be really mentally strong. You have to have that mental grit to know who you are as a person. And then whatever comes. So I could be a rich woman, right? And my ideal rich life is to move back to Grenada and just be on Coconut Beach. I don't want no jet. I don't want nothing. But I just want that security to say, okay, I'm feeling for Grenada this weekend and I might feel for St. Vincent the other weekend. So, but it really is me at the end of the day being happy with my life. Otherwise, it's going to forever be a chase. So you have to say, okay, I envision this amount of money or a particular cash flow. So even if to say you don't reach $1 million, but you have a rental going on, you have like an apartment building, something that keeps the money coming in and flowing, then you could say, okay, this is enough. This is sustainable enough. So you have to set realistic goals for yourself, and you have to be like, you have to have that inner gratitude, and that gratitude is going to take you along the way. Otherwise, you'll never be happy or satisfied at the level you are at.
Yeah, I agree with Krissy, because I feel like, Jans, maybe you and I talked about this before. I feel like I've been in that place for quite some time now, where I've worked since I was the age of 14, 15, and majority of my life I've worked as well. I've worked more than I've done schooling, to be honest. And so there was that one mentality of like, I want to just, keep making money so I can do this and buy this. But then I really had to like sit down and just come back to the idea of like, as Krissy, what you mentioned earlier, of like, what is not relevant to you, but yet you're still spending on it, right? And what makes more sense for you, for your life, for the life that you want to live. And that kind of translated on like, do I want to talk to more people or take on more, clients and all that kind of stuff too? Or is that going to lead out to burnout? And am I good right here? And sometimes I laugh because like, I remember there was like 15-year-old Bahar who got a job at a gym smoothie place, right? And was making like, minimum wage was $5.50 at that time. But then at the age of 18, I got a job at those credit company places where you call and solicit and say, we want to lower your interest rate. And that wage went up to $15 an hour. And then I thought I was the richest person in the world. I was like, boy, I'm making $1,000 to $2,000 a month. And like, I used to be able to do things with that money. And I was laughing at myself driving in the car the other day. I was like, I remember the time where I would still be able to do the things I loved, even with that much money. And and I really had to be like, what has changed? And so
I
for
asked
me,
myself that recently.
yeah. And so for me, it was like, because then that also drove my mindset of like how I should be saving as well, right? Because it's like, I was able to do this thing with this money. Why am I still not saving that? So like now I am in this point where I'm like, you know what, I'm okay. Where for me mentally, it was for me like my trigger or my accomplishment was like, I don't have to check my account before I decide to spend on something.
Mhm.
If I'm at that place, which I am thankfully, like I'm good. I don't need to now start continuing to chase for like an additional number of contracts because like my mental space, there was a pivot in in my mind. It was like my mental space really started mattering, and that mattered. And if that meant like I needed to downscale somewhere, right? If that means that like I'm not going to get a big ass mansion, I don't think I need a big ass mansion, right? I want a space. Y'all know me. I love my living space to be very open space, at least, whether it's going to be a
A
one
big
bedroom, a two, or
kitchen.
a bit, and a big kitchen, right? That's all I need. Same thing with Krissy. My goal is to be back in Grenada
Yeah.
and live on Coconut Beach, right? So like being able to even just say like, oh, whoa, I'm going to do a girls trip this weekend, that's not going to hurt me that much. Like that is where I feel like enough is enough.
Mhm.
Yeah. Kudos to the people that think they do need more and want to go for more. Absolutely go for it. But for me, I was like, I'm gonna burn out if I just don't stop.
Yep.
That's something important that you mentioned there, B, because I had to remind myself that I like, sometimes you have to really stop and take stock and be like, wait, at a certain point, you used to work for half or a third or a quarter or just like a fragment of what you're making now, and you weren't less happy.
Yep.
In many ways, maybe you were actually more happy. You had
Mhm.
less responsibilities. It was simple. I save this much, I spend this much,
Yep.
and now we have to think of all of the different allocations that are, even before the check goes into the bank account, we already have, you set up some direct deposits, you already have allocations, and money already has it where it has to go even before you get it. And so we're tied to that, and we're also tied to all of the lifespan that we put on our money as well, in terms of like, I need to do this for this amount of time, I need to do this for this amount of time. And sometimes I just had to, the other day I had to remind myself, like, you used to be happy on this much. So what is it that you're doing now and that you feel like you can't live without now, that
Yep.
has made affording yourself so difficult? And not that it's difficult, it's just like, really, maybe we do the same things that we used to love to do, but we're doing it more frequently. And sometimes that's unnecessary. We're eating out many more times. We're fetting during the week and on the weekend. We're not resting. What am I not doing that I used to do before, when I had less money, but I had more joy? Maybe I was spending more time with friends and family, just, low-key, just chilling, intimate settings, conversation. Maybe I was at home cooking with family and friends, and that was a source of joy. Maybe I was just spending more time doing my hobbies. Maybe I was just spending more time reading, relaxing. Maybe I was spending time just watching TV, but I was doing something else before, where I wasn't spending my time spending, because something about spending money is also fun. And half of the time when we spend it, it's nonsense.
It is. At least when we're together.
Absolutely.
And when we get drunk, like when I get drunk, I turn into a sugar mommy. I get drunk and I just swipe.
I got it. Swipe it.
Yeah.
Swipe
None
my
of
card
that
all day long.
nonsense.
I
Come
think
on.
there's like the ego that comes in too, right? Where we think like once we get to a certain financial stature, that there has to be visual things that symbolize it, the big house, the many cars, and so forth. And there was a point where I'm like, oh gosh, like I want to, like, as I said, that whole conversation with like big house, but I'm like, that's not needed, right? Or like multiple cars. I'm like, that's not needed. And then I start thinking about like environmental impact solely along those lines too. But like, I think that's part of it, is like, especially when you're in a scenario where like you do have friends that are doing really well. And sometimes you get into that comparative mindset a little bit, right? Where you're just like, oh, well, they have this huge house and it's amazing. Like, I want something like that. Versus like, when you really dig deep down into it, I'm like, no, actually, that's not for me. Man, that house is going to be so expensive to clean. That's, like, then I start thinking like, that's when you start becoming practical. And I think that's when it starts, like, that's when I feel like, oh, I was like, okay, I'm grown up now. I'm not letting the ego of like, I need a big house and fancy car. It's like more of like, I want to be in a place where I'm happy and safe and still doing okay. So
It's lifestyle inflation.
yeah.
allow for it to get the better of you.
Exactly.
You'll get broke that way.
And
Real
sometimes
quick.
we can afford a lifestyle, but we don't always think about the cost of maintaining a lifestyle.
Yeah.
You know, you can afford the big house, but you can afford the big house. When are you going to be able to make upgrades on this big house? When are you going to be able to put solar panels on this big house? When are you going to, how much does it cost to service this big car? How much, like you said, how much does it cost to clean this big house? This big house has this really high tech stove connected to Siri, and then the shit stopped working, and then you realize it costs double to get it repaired. All the little things that we don't always think about going in when we aspire to certain things, and realize it's really the simple things that that make us happy.
Yeah. To me, it's like I love a big home. I love a big kitchen area. I love having parties in my room because it's a big space. But I'm like, this house not making me no money. I am spending on you.
You're like,
That
get
is
to work,
it.
bitch.
Get to work. What's wrong with you? You're just sitting here enjoying yourself. Like, for me, it's like I always want to make sure that things are making money around me. So it's like a house looks great, but it's like, okay, but can I turn this into an apartment and rent that? And I think that's definitely my parents, like in my brain, low key, because like we've owned apartments. So it's like always in my head, it's like a building with 4 walls can be rented.
Yo, listen.
That is where my head is at always. I'm like, yo, y'all want to go away for carnival and just like rent the house? Like just go and spend a little 2 days somewhere else. We can rent this. We can make some money off the shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. But for me, it's always been like,
it's a door prize every time we come to drink. Come over to drink, and
I'm gonna start charging.
You're gonna be the bar on site. You know how they put on like when you're trying to rent like a hotel, like bar on site, they always have that. You're the bar on site.
I'm the bar on site.
Yeah, there you go.
Make some money.
I need to come to 1 or 2 events you have. I know I'm always when he tells
it's about time. You just come to the house. You doesn't come inside.
Come to pick up the girl.
We always have such a good time. Ro throws the best bedroom parties.
The rollerblades, the roller skates are the highlight.
And last weekend gone, we had wine tasting. It was so good.
Yes, we had a wine. I got these glasses from the wine taste. It was great.
Yes.
So look out for events. Nice little boutique events. We'll do it.
I'll be there in August, so we'll see how.
Me too.
Fantastic. I plan on doing something then, so I'll wait for you.
It's your birthday month too, so.
Things confirmed, or y'all are just telling us stuff to hold on to?
My ticket is booked. I'm ready to hop on that flight.
Mine and Gerald's tickets are booked too. Yeah, we're booked too. And but obviously we're waiting on Daryl's immigration, which I think we should be good to go. Ro, when we booked that ticket, I was like, I better stay till December before Rohan said left before she birthday. So
girl, right now I'm trying to get Drake tickets and that will be sometime in August. If I have to miss my birthday and go see Drake, I'm going.
Okay, fine. I'll give you that. I'll let that be.
But it's gonna most likely be in California if I do go. So I'll let you know so we could coordinate.
I'll still be in Grenada if you're in August. But then if you're still back in September, then that's fine.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out. All right. Wait, Krissy, did you get to answer that question? My apologies.
I think I did. I can't remember.
Okay, I think you did. Yeah. Okay, cool. Awesome. So next question for our listeners, or for us too, was this one is a poll question. So do you use a personal goal tracking planning system such as vision boarding, journaling, mentorship program or financial coaching, and then or others, or anything else? 30% said vision boarding, 44% said journaling, a small percent, 11% said mentorship program or financial coaching, and then another 11% said something else.
Maybe the something else includes Excels and things like that.
Yeah.
Maybe.
What do you guys?
Huh?
What do
I
you guys
technically use
I
vision
do
board.
a little vision boarding, and I also use
Mhm.
lots of Excel sheets.
Nice.
Mm.
Journal, I use Excel because I don't have to use Excel, but I do it anyway just because I like to write it myself.
Same.
Yeah. Tips, no.
Wait,
But
Krissy, are you saying like you like to handwrite your own checklist versus type?
yeah.
Yeah. Is it that feeling of like
Mm.
because you get to cross off something? Me too. Yeah, same. I thought I was gonna be the only like old school one that did that.
No,
have
I
a-
love, listen,
I love a
several
pen and
books.
paper.
Pen
Yeah.
and paper always, but
Yeah.
it's always in my phone as well, just in case, because like that's the actual reminder. Because I don't go look at this
Yeah.
book all the time.
Mm.
Yeah, I just think having the both really work. So I technically use like Pinterest as my vision board to kind of, you know, put my brain together a little bit, I think. So
Do
that's
you
my version of it.
So like follow-up question for y'all. So like when we're thinking about like vision boarding journey, generally like general planning, like do you all have like a dedicated day? So like for example, my thing is like Sunday evenings where I just kind of like, okay, these are the things I want to accomplish this week, or is it kind of like as you go? So like do you like sit some like I know there's also some people that kind of almost make like a ritual out of it. Ritual is maybe not the right word, but a ritual they're like unwinding and then just like, okay, now I'm in this space to start planning. I have a friend that actually does meditation right before it so that she can feel like in a good mindset before she starts, doing her planning for the week. So do you guys have anything like that or even like a cadence, even at minimum that you start doing these things?
I do. So like I have a journal that I bring with I bring to me with I bring with work to me. I bring to me with work, right? I bring to me with work, and so once I'm free, I start writing the things that I want to do like when I get home. So I know typically I typically work out in my living room, so I know like by 8 to 8:30 I have a blocked off time to exercise a little bit, and then I have another 30 seconds dedicated to like just reading a book randomly or continuing like a novel or anything like that. So it kind of gives me structure when I get home after work as opposed to just lying down every night watching Netflix. And so far I've been doing that all year, and so far I feel much better. Like with my nights I feel less like lethargic and more intentional too, and it helps. It really does help.
Yeah.
What was
Okay. The
Let me-
question was,
I
you have,
remember the question. I was just waiting for a row to go, but both of us were staring at each other.
I thought it froze.
I don't know why.
Holy-
I thought I lost sound.
And we were just staring at each other.
Oh gosh.
That's
Oh, what do? I'm a
weak.
super lister. I love listing. I love lists. Lists
Mhm.
make me feel like it makes me feel accomplished. Sometimes I use the psychology of lists to motivate me as well. Sometimes I would just list some random little thing and just so that I can tick something off, and that motivates me. And I love breaking down big tasks into little things so that also more things to tick, more motivation to add more things to the list. So I usually at the beginning of the year, I would always do a reflection of the previous year, and I would set some general goals for my year. And then what I've been doing more recently, at least for this year, maybe I've done it in the past, just not documented, but definitely documenting now. I would set monthly goals. Like I want to get this done by the end of the month. And many times I don't get it done, but then also I look back and I'm seeing, okay, you had to do this, you had to do that. And then I would set weekly goals. So sometimes I need to throw away all my lists and just live. Because
Okay,
it
too.
also makes me very overwhelmed. It also, I tend to go very hard on myself. Like today I had a really hard day, and it's mostly because, again, the list and comparing myself to the list, and comparing like the things that I have not ticked off, and maybe just looking at other people and like, okay, if you had stuck to the list, you would be here. That kind of just being very critical of myself. But I like to set daily lists, and how do I do it? I kind of take some quiet time in the morning. I clean my house, I call it my reset period. I play music and I clean, wipe down the counters, do what I have to do, and like write down what I want to do for the day. I either do that at the beginning of the day or the night before, and then throughout the day, if anything comes up, I have different parts of my little notebook where I would write, oh, this is something I want to accomplish in general. I added to that just general life goal list. This is something I want to do this month. This is something I want to do this week. This is something I want to do today. This is something I want to do tomorrow. And I use bullet journaling to track what I have to do for work. So I usually have the week. Now I'm using a ready-made bullet journal. Before I would create a whole spread, but now I just add things to the day that it's for. So if it's for next week, I go to next week, and the journal I'm using right now is cool because it has space for monthly lists, weekly lists, daily lists. And I think that
stickers?
No, but I do have stickers. I don't use stickers though. I've become just I've taken out all of the art and crafts out of bullet journaling, and I use just a black pen to write my list and colored pens to color in my boxes, different color, different date, boom, boom, boom. Just
No thing.
Yeah, no fuss. But I love a list. I love a list. Yeah.
I too love a list, but I am a creative chaos within my brain. So like I work within the chaos, but also the chaos consumes me and then becomes like just hell to deal with. But I think I've terribly trained myself to be most creative when I need to get it done within 24 hours. It's how I train myself to study. It's how I train myself to write essays. Like not one idea will come to me prior to that deadline, just ticking down. And I'm just like, all right, let's go. The brain is moving. So I try with lists. I always have my to-do lists for Microsoft To Do. I use that. I write things down. I write things in my notes. So like everything's a little bit all over the place. But I try my best to, one, take myself more serious than I do, but also not take myself too seriously, because then my anxiety pops in. Yeah, it's like this like healthy, unhealthy balance. Because I don't want my anxiety to kick in, and now I'm like overly anxious about everything that I think that I need to have done, and I just need to balance it all. But there are just days that my day doesn't start easily. It starts with a call. Hey, we need this, and it's done. And it's 7:30, and I'm like in my bed still, and I'm there on my phone trying to get stuff done for a client, or like trying to think of something really quickly. And I'm just like, I just want one day to go how I need it to go.
Yeah.
But then there are days that I have absolutely nothing to do. So it's like this balance that I need to like get control of, basically. You know, and as hard as it is, it's something that needs to get done, because I'm getting to the place where I'm like, every day feels like my anxiety is about to throw me off the damn edge. You know, and it's a hell of a thing, but it also like kind of keeps me going as well. So I have a really toxic relationship with myself.
I get it. Yeah, I feel like it's funny because I'm a big list person too. And for a while I was doing this thing of like generalizing my to-dos, right? And this is in regards to like my personal stuff that I need to do, like, you know, like for example, if I'm planning a trip or things like taxes, like, you know, even just some basic stuff. And I used to get overwhelmed. And part of that was because I wasn't creating like kind of like what you said, Jan's, like the steps to get to that bigger goal. And so like last few years, I started implementing of like, you know what, instead of saying that, oh, I want this done, I started putting a timeline of like, I started categorizing it actually. What are the short-term goals? What are my long-term goals? And then timing that out of like, where does that fall? Because like it allowed me to be realistic with myself a little bit more as well. And naturally, yeah, some things do fall off the radar, but then I kind of like started supplementing with that. Like I now like have a visual, like I don't really love calendar on my phone. I have the calendar, of course, on my computer, but same idea of that idea of like writing something down. So like I have this like whiteboard calendar that I update every month that has like little even reminders. I used to be really good with remembering things, not much longer, but like, you know, for like this, like for example, like this weekend, I'm like, okay, I want to start looking into like the housing market. I've had that as a big goal for the last 2 months, but realistically, we haven't been able to spend time on it. So the crazier part is that then I started introducing like it was kind of like a light bulb for me where I'm like, wait, I project manage for my customers. Obviously, I get shit done for them. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be talking about this. I was like, so let's apply it to my own personal life. And so it's like, it's a waterfall method where it's like, in order to get to this goal, this specific action needs to happen first. And so I started kind of doing a little project management methodology. So like, I'll give a really basic example. One for my mom and I are going to Spain in April. And, the project was like plan Spain, but like in that project was like, okay, book hotel or like research neighborhoods. Like it's like even those like little things that might seem mundane, but it's like these were like the little things I needed to start doing first. Research neighborhoods. Think about how far the airport is. Now book your hotel. Think about, attractions. Now buy the tickets. Like, those kind of things of like just trying to make sure that I keep on track with things, and like it's been working, so it's good. But it was just like it took me a while to be like, why did I not project manage myself before? Because so along with the list, I do these like if it's for especially for big projects that like I need to really think about stuff, then like I will like have like an actual project management of like I need to take a look at a couple of things, which in itself also gets overwhelming because like you also are like, shit, how come I didn't do this yet? But that's a whole different conversation.
I like that you said that too, because I always think of it in the sense that if your boss or so asks you to do something, you'll get it done. But when it comes to ourselves, we have all of these setbacks. So if we could implement what is put on us to our own lives, then we'll definitely be like more productive and stuff with ourselves.
Absolutely.
My thing with my list, the biggest thing is when I make a list is to not wait until the end of the day or to not wait until I've run out of time to reschedule something. Like,
that's a good tip.
Once I notice that my day, I've lost control of the day. We all have days like that. I would automatically just start going through my list and just taking things off and releasing things and just say, okay, now scheduled for Monday. I would just add that note, reschedule, and just add it on to a different day in the week or a different day in the month, because you also have like you make lists, but you also have to be willing to like scrap the list and just like, even when I'm feeling anxious and I'm feeling like I'm operating from a place of chaos, Ro, because you also have that, like just doing a brain dump also helps. When I'm feeling overwhelmed, lists also help me not just to get things done, because sometimes I make a list and I get nothing done, but just the act of making a list, I can take it out of my head and stop trying to remind myself every hour, don't forget to go and get the cat food. I write it down and then I just throw it away and then I forget it. And I just know that I have to check my list at some point. I mean, you have to remember to check your list, but as long as that becomes a habit, you can just get into like that method of write it down and let it go, and just know that you have already created a system that you can guide yourself by, and you don't need to try and hold all of these different things in your brain. And like what you said about breaking things down, sometimes when I'm trying to exercise something, sometimes the first step for me is like, wake up in the morning, do what you have to do, but put your sneakers out and lay out the yoga mat. Maybe that is what's on the list. Put out the yoga mat. Sometimes it's just that one thing. Once you figure out what's causing the mental block, maybe the task is just something I know I'm not going to enjoy doing, or something that I know is going to be big, like planning a trip. And really, you can't sit down and plan a trip. First, you have to sit down and say, let me go through my calendar and see what dates are the best dates and block out dates, step one. Or let me just do some random, Expedia or Kayak or whatever searches and see when are the best days to travel, period. And that's the first step,
Yeah.
Because then you go down a rabbit hole.
Yeah. It's funny that you brought up that yoga mat example, Jans, because I read a book, I just finished it, called Atomic Habits. I forgot the author's name, but it's a really great book because it, especially for people like me who get anxiety, I think we all just talked about that. We get anxiety around like just general having to do things and not completing them. And in the book, the author talks about it's like what you should really look at are a few things, like to make it easier on yourself. Think about your habits or things that you want to create, or even just things that you want to get done on like ease of access and also ease of use. So when we say ease of access, as we said, if we're trying to get in a workout, let's make sure we put that yoga mat in front of us maybe before we go to bed, or just leave it out there, right? Like it doesn't have to be rolled away because we'll know that. Or like, if you're trying to pick up the habit of like, running, just put your shoes, instead of put it like right now we put our shoes in the garage, I now have it like, I try to put it next to my bed. Or like if we say, we know that we want to make a habit of, going out and taking a class, and we want to learn something. Krissy, you said that earlier. Hey, if you're trying to get to learn something, that means that you also have to invest in it. So like maybe paying for a class that we need to take once a week is going to drive us to get to that class, therefore get to making sure that we're learning. So like some other type of commitment that you've put towards it. So I just thought it was interesting that you brought that up.
If anybody wants to read that book, I think it's by James Clear.
Yes, thank you. It's
A
a really good book. Yeah. Ro, he also appeared on Girls Gotta Eat podcast as well. So he dropped some like really good gems on that one. Cool. So next poll question, we got 2 more questions left. So this poll question was, would you sign up for a mentorship or life coaching program? They had 4 choices to choose from. So 0% said that they've done it and would recommend. And so basically no one has said that they've done it. 71% said they haven't tried it, but they want to. And 29% said it's a scam and they're not catching me.
Oh gosh.
I feel like that could be like from like fear from further, generations before us too. That may have been.
It's also fair because the Instagram has a million.
Some people are actual scammers.
Yes, agreed.
Every like month, there's always like a health coach, a wellness coach, and I'm like, can you just all shove off, please, with your fake followers and your absolute nonsensical posts? So it's like, if you're looking on just the internet where like you're on social media, then yeah, everything does seem a little scammy. Every 5 minutes there's some other scam or the other. But I think the intentional act of going and find and do research on, if you need a financial coach, if you need something more, to kind of help you out, you gotta do the research, You're not gonna just drop on your lap.
Agree. I feel like I do have a slight fear of like whoever's like, yes, I think the person who you go to for mentorship and life coaching, there obviously lies some credibility there. But and it might be an irrational fear. I'm like, okay, but what if this person is not following their own advice? Do you know what I mean? So it doesn't necessarily mean that they're a scammer, because as I just gave that whole example, like Chris, we just said that, right? Like we do things that we know, like if, bosses or like our customers want, but we don't apply that to our personal life. So it doesn't necessarily mean that they're scammers, but I'm still more like, it's like the same idea of like when doctors are doctoring, right? Like they're telling you to live a healthy lifestyle, but they're chain smokers, right? It's like, it doesn't necessarily mean they're scammers. It doesn't mean that they're not as like, really knowledgeable in that field. But so that is, I'm pretty sure it's an irrational fear, but that is my thing of like, I haven't done it before. I do think there's a lot of great stuff that does come out of it. And I'm pro it, but I do have that fear of like, what if they're just kind of like spewing stuff, but like not following their own advice, and how do we prove it? Where do we have proof of concept for this? So but we also have an advocate here. So Krissy, thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not entirely against mentorship. I feel like people at all levels have some form of mentorship. Even the gurus, as they say, they do have guidance at every single level. On a personal level, I don't know if I'm like ready for that. I would love to give it, but for me, I don't know. And I think it just comes down to personality, because I'm someone like, if I'm just done with you, I'm just ready to get a different opinion, and then I could just have it like, that's it. Like that's the end of the contract or whatever it is, whatever agreement that we have. So like I like change. So it's just a matter of me just being tired of someone and all right, I don't want your advice anymore and I'm ready to move on to the next. But in an overall sense, I am not against it at all. Like if you feel like it's beneficial to you, then or it could be possibly beneficial to you, then just see how it is. Like you'll never know until you actually see. Everything could be in your head. So kind of 50-50 with it because you kind of have to like have that level of discernment as well. And a lot of people lack that. And then some people are just fake up front. So it's really a give and take. And everything is a risk in life anyway. So it could either be a story or you could end up, it could be a blessing too.
Yeah. Rohan, you there?
I feel like she wouldn't start going into a spiral
She
conversation.
muted.
Oh, she's on mute. Okay.
That's what it is. You
You
playing
pulled a
me.
Yans today.
She did.
I did. Mommy walks in the house and she's trying to like mime to me. And I'm like, I'm muted. You could talk, but I don't want to say it here because y'all could see me.
Yeah.
Ro, did you want to say something about this? Hey, talking to moms. Hi, mommy.
They're saying hi, mommy. Says hi with food in her mouth. I don't have much to add. I feel like I believe in some sort of mentorship or at least some sort of therapy. Sometimes I feel like maybe like if you have a little bit of therapy, then you could kind of work your way through all the other things in your life, career, finance.
Mhm.
But I don't necessarily want anybody in my business.
There's
You
that
know?
too.
There's that too. But I mean, I'm open to it, and I think people should be open to it just to see, like, will this actually really help me? Even if it doesn't help you fully in this capacity that you need it to, maybe it's gonna help you in some other way. You'll pick up a couple little gems along the way. So I think it's something that we should all be open to. But if you don't want it, I mean, I get it. Feel you.
I have 3 separate points about this. My first point is they're probably bullshitting and it's probably a scam and they're probably figuring it out as they go, as we all are. Because I think that's one thing we've learned as we become adults is that nobody knows what they're doing.
We all bullshitting.
We're all bullshitting, so it's probably a scam. But the second thing
something will catch
is mentorship from the perspective of like guidance. I think it's very important to have people that like Krissy, you mentioned accountability before, and I think that also is in part what mentorship provides. It's accountability. Somebody who you trust, who maybe has a level of experience that you don't have, who can oversee your process and give you checks, right? And I think that is really important. And then mentorship from the point of like in your circle or in your network, if there are people who have achieved the goal that you are trying to achieve, who could help you from making the mistakes that they would have made on the way, and who could say, okay, in this situation, this is what I did. Not that you have to take their advice, but they've already surpassed that, and you don't have to learn by trial and error. I think that is really important. And then the last point is there are some programs that are academically based and vetted and like are maybe it's a mentorship through internship, or maybe it's coaching, like actual coaching. Maybe it's a skill-based something that you're trying to do. Like if you're a bartender and someone is coaching you, there's like a certain amount of skill. Some of it is instinct, some of it is just understanding flavors, but some of it is like skill. Hold it so, shake it so, do this, do that, this glass for this is that. Some of it is like you have to learn and somebody has to teach you. So there's a certain amount of coaching. Or with my profession, I would say like I have to see somebody who's done it, because there are different ways of doing it. There's some people who go the scientific route and it's just like, well, but I want to go the sexy gal in science route. So I could create this for myself.
You go, Velma.
It would be nice to see like somebody who's already doing it, and you can get advice on how do you navigate these spaces. What did you do in these situations? And I may not do what they do, but at least I get like some perspective. Because imagine if you had to experience everything by trial and error. If you had to fail, and there's some failures that it's really difficult to come back from. So if somebody could save us from that.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I would like to do a mentorship program with someone, I would also like to mentor someone, but I also don't feel like I'm qualified. And also, I don't know what I would want somebody to mentor me on, because I also would be like, you sure?
Right.
I would be like, but you don't know the experience that I went through. Like, like I'll be like giving so much pushback, which is so rude of
They're
me.
also unique. So also
Yeah.
mentorship, like it makes you feel like you need to fit into a box too if you don't have a mentor that understands you.
Yeah.
But at least, like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Last question. So, based on personal experience, what mentorship or coaching programs would you recommend to persons trying to grow financially and or in their current field? Only 2 people answered this one. So, one person said, actually get candid with your friends and they would share and help slash, I don't know, maybe cry with you, and then maybe commit fraud together.
what was I?
Uh-huh.
No, it was not, but it was our friend.
No, it is someone that is very dear to us. And then the second person said, personally, I seek personal development through books, sometimes recommended by coaches.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like that answer. Yeah.
Yeah. I would say in this case, like based on personal experience, there are some people that I do follow. So like I started following a person called My Rich BFF just to kind of get like in the know around like just around like investments, things to think about. Yeah. I think for like even for personal development, I find it helpful that, kind of like we talked about networking earlier of like people that are kind of in your same field who kind of been in the game, have skin in the game for a lot longer than you. And just like even like just having coffee with them, right? And chatting it up, or like having someone that you can like kick back ideas off of, because maybe like while we have friends that are bossing it up in the fields, you may not have the ones that are in the same fields. And so like having that, like I know like my baby brother, he's in a leadership in a company, but yet he still has somebody that he speaks to. It's his friend, but that person has been in leadership in another company for quite a long time at the C exec level. So like, he shoots off of ideas of like, I'm kind of even things about like, I'm working on these things with like my team. Like, what are your thoughts, as far as like, because even at a leadership level, as Krissy, you mentioned, like you're coaching people, but even the coach needs a coach. So it's like, so yeah, I'm a big advocate of like opening up to your friends if you feel comfortable enough, or like even for people that have had skin in the game for a while and they're in your network and chatting with them.
Hello, Giselle.
Giselle has arrived, everybody.
Giselle has arrived. Late, but we appreciate her coming.
I'm so sorry. I'll never miss another one again.
It's okay.
That's all right.
But
I know you had other obligations.
Right. Just the transition.
Ask her the last 2 questions. Does she answer?
Oh,
Which one?
how are you tonight? I just reached hashtag lava man.
Before like my brain forgets the thought.
Yeah.
As the social media strategist in the friend group, use your social media to help form your career and help you. Don't follow all the nonsense, like all the influencers, that just maybe selling clothes, unless that's something you're into, right? But I use my social media. I don't necessarily follow all of you on Curly Tails, but that's because I have my other account to follow you on. What I use Curly Tails for is to develop my bartending and mixology skills, and even my social media skills. So I'm following Later Media and other bartenders and mixologists, whether they're at-home bartenders like I am, or they're major professionals in the field. I've curated all my social media, minus my Twitter. I've curated all my social medias to form me as a mixologist and as a social media strategist, to kind of just help me along, so that every time I scroll, it's with purpose and it's like intentional scrolling. So I don't feel like I'm wasting time scrolling on social media. Like I'm learning shit as I go along. I don't know how to say that, but yeah. Use your social media to help push you. That could be your mentor a little bit, honestly. There are a lot of mentors on there that you can get kind of tips and little tidbits of things if you don't want to necessarily jump into full mentorship. There are things that you can do and help form. Just use your social media to help form that for you. So that was
Agree.
thought before. Yeah, because I feel like you would do the same as well, Krissy. Like,
Yeah, I mean, in general, I use one account. I am one. I can't. My brain just doesn't allow me to like dissect
yeah,
finance. I show everything together. So you see me
mhm,
drinking one week, cup in hand. Then the next week, the next day, I'll be talking about finances and mindset and stuff like that. It's all in one, and I think that's what kind of made it different too, because people tend to just separate their lives, and I think for me, it
mhm,
was useful to just incorporate it. And I think that's why people gravitated to it, because
yeah,
a lot of people see money in a different way. So they could just see a person who looks like them or who's outside and still
yeah,
trying to find that balance. So that's why people kind of come to me as
yeah.
opposed to trying to force a page from zero and stuff like that. So, and I follow a lot of people. So, and one thing I also did, I muted a lot of pages up front when I actually decided, okay, I want to kind of focus in on finance and development.
Mhm,
I muted a bunch of stories that go across. And it was just for a period of time for me to get in the mindset I wanted to be in at the time. And I started following, as you said, Your Rich BFF. I followed Dillian. Anthony O'Neill, I spoke about him on Twitter. He does like podcasts or like we talks with like a lot of African American people and young people like us and stuff like that. So I follow a lot of people on this same journey and mostly ahead of me so I could learn still because it's
mhm,
ongoing.
absolutely.
You said ahead of you. I think that's one thing that I've used for my life, just ensuring that I'm never the most senior person in the room. Yes, you have
Mm-hmm.
your friends that you feel you can power with, but it's also good to have people in your life who are very senior to you, very
Yeah.
at such a different far-fetched stage in their life, because it really helps you provide that kind of context and directive for your life. It helps you figure out, okay, what are the steps that I need to make right now to either end up where that person is or to not end up where that person is. Because you could
Mm,
also use mentorship as this is an example of the steps that I don't want to take. And,
yeah.
not don't just follow somebody for the sake of following, really properly vet that person and see their, each person, they're also, like we said, figuring it out. Nobody's an actual expert.
Yeah.
We're all frauds in some way, but like, take what everybody says with a grain of salt, but also learn from other
Mhm,
people's experiences. Literally anybody could be a mentor to you. You can look at what they've done and say, okay, they did XYZ and they ended up here, and I might not end up here, but it's at least it's a precautionary tale,
Yeah.
for you.
Agreed.
sure.
Dizzy, you wanted to add to that? I can repeat the question for you if you like.
Oh yeah, because I don't know what I'm talking about.
So the question was, based on personal experience, what mentorship or coaching programs would you recommend to persons trying to grow financially or in their own current field?
Oh,
And the question before to be read that one. That might give more context too.
Question before that. Oh yeah. So would you sign up for a mentorship or life coaching program?
well, fun fact, the reason why I was late today or almost didn't make it is because I had one of those mentorship type things on Zoom, blah, blah, blah. So, yes, that answers the first question. Is there any that I would recommend? Anything that I have on finance thus far is from Krissy. So, shameless plug wherever she did for the Chrissy's, you know, because she's relatable. The meeting that I just came out of, it's cool to see a lot of people just wanting to do better for themselves, which is what I really appreciated. And there was a lot of Caribbean people. Uh, yeah, I'll share with y'all privately what didn't work for me in it, but the essence of those things where you go on YouTube and or you read an article and they give you all this preamble for like three quarter of the page, and then they give you a link at the bottom. So you still have to follow it. So that's where I was, and it's just that my life is already a big meeting in itself. If you could give me like the concise version so we could move forward, that's where I. But I don't have any that I would recommend besides the things that I've gotten from Chris, because I do have an investing current book. Do I have it? No, but I did sign up for it today. It's in my cloud thing. If I ever remember how to work the cloud stuff, and just looking at what she posts and stuff like that, it's in itself like her life and her social media presence in itself is a mentorship for the eye. Mind you, I am nowhere where I need to be or want to be yet. However, it's still like encouraging to know that if I do have a pressing question, or if I ever reach that point when I'm like, yo, Krissy, really, so that I know that she's there for that. And just the people in my life, like in school, I have Mrs. Sean as a mentor to try and figure out, how to get better at my particular job. And then, of course, I take mentorship as people who are doing what I want to do. So I have my friends as mentors as well, even though they don't realize it or they don't know it in some facets. So, yeah, life is mentoring for me. Any program, chill with your friends, talk with your friends, talk with the people who've been doing what you're doing, find out what it is that they are doing. And like Ayana said, compare it. This is where you want to go. This is not where you want to go. Maybe a different route for you, but the result is where you see yourself. Yeah.
Krissy, I have a question for you. So, like, for those people that have come to you for advice, are you able to identify like what is like, I guess, amongst that, like what has been like the most like common ask that they've had, or actually more so like the common like thing that they had a fear around when when it came to like, as we think about like financial freedom and trying to get to a better place?
I think it's for them, a lot of people just don't know where to start. And I typically so sometimes people would ask me, okay, how much do they need to start? Or how do they even start? These are the most frequent questions I get in my DMs. And my answer would always be to go to YouTube, buy the ebook as well, and read a book on finance. And I typically tend to recommend just to get them in the right frame of mind, Rich Dad Poor Dad. A lot of people like it, a lot of people don't, but I actually really do like that book. And a lot of people are not able to invest as yet. They just want that upfront guidance. And it's a little different if you're investing from a Caribbean perspective. Like, it's not as easy. Like, you can't just go onto the laptop as you could just do that like in the US or Canada or wherever. It actually takes a little additional push. But like I would always say, there are brokerages that you can use. It just takes a little longer to possibly set up and stuff like that. But not sure if that answered your question, but I hope
it did. Do you have an opinion on like why it's not as easy just yet in the Caribbean versus States?
I just think we're not there yet, but I think everything up here is just like easier, but I can't, like, I personally don't know, because like I know people who use interactive brokers, and that's the brokerage that they use to like purchase and sell shares and stuff like that. But it's still not as wide in scope as brokerages up here. So I honestly don't know. I just think we're not at that level yet. And I guess if conversations would like be had in schools, institutions, and stuff like that, maybe it would give us another push. But I would just say that's just for kind of like the Eastern Caribbean, because the Jamaican Stock Exchange, they have their stuff like really set up. I think they have like trading apps over there. It's a different level to us in the Eastern Caribbean. And I think Trinidad as well is even on another, like a step above us. I think you still have to end up calling to purchase. I could be subject to correction there, but it's very slow. It's very, very slow compared to like the ease of accessibility of buying. But I don't know why. Lots of small reasons, I guess. And it's not common, I guess, too. So it's like, why are we pushing for something that's not common to begin with? So
In my journey, the most difficult thing has really been just moving money in the Caribbean. Our online banking instruments don't really allow for ease of just simple things, just really just moving money or connecting your banking to all of the different apps and platforms. Like the most that I've used, it's been a system where like I've had to almost do like a purchase, almost like you're going through like a purchase type thing to get money onto the site. It's difficult to then get it back into your account. It's so many different things.
Even PayPal, I think it's not as simple. It's like
It's always
and
an
before
issue.
we had PayPal, it was easier because I would have PayPal and I would be able to both send and receive quite easily through my PayPal. And then now I don't, because our bank, the bank has changed ownership and a lot of the things have changed. So now I don't have the same kind of a flexibility with my PayPal account. I was using Capital, and that I couldn't, it was still limited in many ways. So yeah, it's really just the ease of moving money here.
And
It has been
cash that came out, but I'm not too sure how viable it is as an option in Grenada. I don't know. I see cash. I can't.
They use it here.
Is it good though?
I've never signed up for it.
Okay.
I can't even have proper online banking right now. So me and apps down here, we're not friends.
Yeah, in general, it is very difficult, I think. And it's to go into the bank and set up an account, open an account. They give you hell for that.
Yeah.
So it's not as easy.
I think one of the major reasons for that is because then we would need to step up our IT game, people who are updating the apps and all of that. And I think that's a lot where the problem lies, because I mean, Cooperative Bank, their online banking system for me is really good. But then I pay my bills online, or I do whatever transactions online, and then I go to the party that I was paying, or and I look for that update. And either day, it's not there. I looked at my flow bill today, and I saw that it was still like due, and I was like, oh, when I paid it, I went into Corp Bank's app and it said successful. I called Flow on the line just to make sure that it was paid, and they got the update, but the app doesn't reflect it. And I think what it is that once you don't know for sure, if you're in limbo, you're 2-3 business days limbo, they kind of miscount, and then your accounting becomes, effed. So yeah, it would take a lot. I don't know if we want to do a lot to get to where we want to be with them kind of things.
Yeah.
And there are just certain banks that brought us back to the Stone Ages. You mentioned
Stone Ages.
But
when that whole transition happened, earlier this year, last year?
Transition happened for 4 years. That transition been happening.
I was hearing, I think I was getting like updates from all of y'all and like some of my other friends. So crazy.
Yeah, no, it was to the point where you basically had to, even when we came to Cali for B's wedding, everybody was just praying every time they start their card.
Yeah.
Like, it was like, please.
Well, I had like cash on the side just in case. I was like, I feel like a whole bunch of people come in that their card might not work. And I was like, we need to have like a side pot for these people.
That's
crazy. I came with a whole bunch of cash because I was like, I don't trust this card. The way it declines. If I buy like a
and it's
water
so
and like
embarrassing.
a snack, and I'm like, I can afford a snack. I have money.
Crazy. But
so yeah, it's just really hard
session.
in this particular area to move around the money.
Yeah.
So much of it. I look at the podcast.
Yes, do that.
I'll watch
You're gonna
it.
love it.
And I would know what's happening.
You have to listen to us this week.
Yes,
look at
you.
Please like and share, leave a comment, rate us. Thank you.
I'm gonna do that, guys.
Who wants to take it away?
Giselle is
I
you.
feel like Giselle. Giselle
Of
is
course.
you.
As
She
you know,
basically
honestly,
just pointed at herself.
you just reach exactly.
You all you
Go
did was point at
Wow.
yourself.
Okay, so we're now taking away the. Okay, all right, V. Okay, cool. All right. So, hi guys, welcome to me. I just got here, but apparently we're leaving. So, thank you for watching what was surely an amazing episode with none other than Krissy Commerce 93. Woo!
Thank you so
And
much,
of
Krissy,
course,
for coming this
yeah,
way.
Thanks for having
Yeah,
me.
we appreciate
I'm
it.
Guys,
very sure it was wonderful conversation.
And can you plug your book for us, please?
I will.
Do it now.
It's a,
Now.
Yeah, you could do it
oh,
now.
now?
Yeah.
Go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
Well, it's in my the link is in my bio one, but it's Investing in the Caribbean ebook, just a guide for Caribbean people in investing in the Eastern Caribbean Securities Exchange. You can find it. Link is in my bio. Yeah, and I'll send it to you guys after.
Love it.
Yeah.
Please and thank you. And of course, that's ChrissyCalm93 on Instagram.
Yes.
If there's a dot or underscore anywhere, that is not she. She's been doing amazing things. So of course she had some scammers that's trying to get in on it as well. So no punctuation, just ChrissyCalm93. Thank you guys for watching. It was an amazing episode with Krissy, growth and financial literacy and everything that comes with it. Check us out on Instagram if you have not done so yet at straightnochaser.podcast. Link in our bio will take you to wherever you want to see. We have Anchor, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, the YouTubes,
You're supposed to say or.
or
wherever you get your podcasts.
every time is a drama.
Every
So
time.
thank you guys so much for watching. This has been Straight No Chaser, all of us plus Krissy.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.